It was a hot Sunday afternoon in Phoenix. Maggie stood at the door of her parents' big house in the fancy Paradise Valley neighborhood. The dry desert wind blew through her brown hair. She wiped sweat from her forehead and picked up the wine bottle she had brought for dinner. She took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Her mother, Susan, opened the door. As always, she looked like she was ready for a photo: perfect makeup, expensive dress, and a cold smile. Behind her, Maggie could see the neat desert garden through large glass windows. "You're late," Susan said. "Everyone's waiting. Amy and her family are already here." Maggie smiled politely, took off her shoes, and stepped inside. The soft Persian rug was warm under her feet. The walls were covered in family pictures: her parents' wedding, school graduations, Amy's wedding, and pictures of Amy's daughter Sarah from birth to now. Each photo looked perfect, like it was meant for social media. Happy smiles, neat clothes, all carefully posed. But Maggie knew real life wasn't that perfect. Amy sat on the white leather couch, smiling and holding her daughter Sarah in her lap. Her husband Greg was next to them, wearing a designer polo shirt and looking like he was at a photo shoot. "Hey, Maggie," Amy said. Maggie's father, David, looked up from his newspaper and gave her a small nod. Even though he was retired, he still acted like a serious schoolteacher, quiet and always watching. Her mother started talking right away, pouring iced tea into fancy glasses. "Amy just started a new yoga class. The teacher used to work with celebrities in LA. It's expensive, but worth it for someone like her." Her father added, "Amy is always so focused. She gives so much to her family and church. We're very proud." Maggie quietly sipped her wine, not saying much. Just last week, she got a big promotion at her accounting firm. She had even signed a major client, but no one brought it up. It was like her success didn't matter here. Suddenly, Amy smiled and said, "Hey, remember that Mexico trip we talked about?" Maggie looked up, confused. "We're all going to Cancun," Amy said happily. "You promised you'd pay, remember?" Maggie blinked. They had only joked about it once. She didn't think they were serious. "It's an all-inclusive resort," her mother said with excitement. "David, don't forget your golf clubs." "Wait," Maggie tried to speak, but Amy interrupted her with a sharp voice. "A promise is a promise," Amy said. "Sarah's really excited, right, sweetie?" Sarah nodded, smiling sweetly. Maggie looked at her niece and felt torn. How could she say no to that little girl's happy face? Even though the trip would cost her a lot of money, Maggie slowly nodded. The next morning, Phoenix morning started early. At 7 a.m., the Walker family met for breakfast at a fancy restaurant called Morning Glory. They sat on the outdoor terrace, where it was cooler and less crowded. Everything looked perfect, like it was staged for a magazine photo. The smell of fresh eggs and coffee filled the air. "Did you bring your passport?" Amy asked loudly. "I almost forgot mine once." "It's in my bag," Maggie said, tired. She hadn't slept well and had checked her bag 3 times. "Oh, that new bag is lovely," her mother said, eyeing it closely. "I need to use the restroom," Maggie said, standing up. "Leave your bag here, no one's going to take it," Susan said. Maggie didn't think twice and left her bag at the table. What happened next? The restaurant's security cameras caught everything. As soon as Maggie walked away, her mother looked around quickly, then reached into Maggie's bag. In one smooth move, she took out the passport and slipped it into her own purse. Amy smiled quietly. Her father stayed focused on his newspaper like nothing happened. Only little Sarah looked confused by her grandmother's sneaky action. When Maggie came back, her mother was calmly reading the menu as if nothing had happened. At the airport, on the way to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, Maggie felt something wasn't right. Her mother and sister were being too nice. Something felt off. At the check-in counter, the airline worker asked, "Passport, please." Maggie opened her bag. She searched calmly at first, then faster and faster. Her passport was gone. "What's wrong?" her mother asked with a little smile. "I can't find it," Maggie said, panic in her voice. "Oh no," her mother said with a fake gasp. "Well, I guess you can't come then." Amy laughed. "You really should be more careful, sis." Their father just grunted, uninterested. "Well, that's that," Susan said. "We'll go on ahead." "Wait," Maggie shouted, but no one stopped. "We're going with real family," Susan said coldly. The family turned and walked away. Maggie stood frozen. Only little Sarah looked back at her, sad and confused. Maggie would never forget that moment. The betrayal, the lies, the setup. Her family had planned this. Her hands shook, but then, something inside her clicked. She remembered her phone, it had recorded the morning's conversation, and she remembered the restaurant's cameras. Maggie took a deep breath. "It's time to end this," she whispered. Later that morning, Maggie drove straight to Morning Glory. She was tired, her eyes puffy, but her mind was clear. At 11 a.m., the restaurant was quiet. She asked to speak to the manager. Janet Morrison came out. Maggie explained the situation, how her passport was stolen, how her family left her behind, and how it was caught on camera. At first, Janet hesitated. "We need a warrant for footage. My mother stole my passport," Maggie said firmly. "Now they're flying to Cancun without me." Janet's face changed. She knew the Walker family. She said she would help. They went to the security room. On the screen, they watched it all, Maggie's mother stealing the passport. "Please save this footage," Maggie said. She took photos and wrote down details. Janet nodded. At the police station, Maggie went straight to the station and filed a report. She showed the police the recordings and videos. "Your family is going to Mexico for a week?" the officer asked. "Yes. This is serious. Passport theft, especially involving travel, is a crime." "I know," Maggie said, "but I'm also worried about my niece. She's just a child." The officer softened. "Let's keep our options open." They made plans, for her protection, possible charges, and what to do when the family came back. "The next few days are important," the officer said. "Use the time wisely." "I will," Maggie said. That evening, Maggie didn't go home. Instead, she checked into a room at the Ritz-Carlton in Phoenix. She needed space to think and rest. From the balcony, she looked out over the city, the same city where she had worked hard, built a life, and supported a family who never saw her value. But now, things were changing. Her family had tried to leave her behind, but they had no idea who they were messing with. And this time, Maggie was ready. The sunset was painting the desert landscape red. Maggie opened her laptop to check her emails. The letter of apology from her mother had already arrived. "To my beloved daughter. I just wanted you to reflect a little, always putting family last." The sound of the delete button echoed in the room. Her smartphone showed 20 unread messages from her sister. She deleted them all without reading. "Let's end this." Sipping whiskey, Maggie developed her plan, legal preparations, financial arrangements, considering new job opportunities, all for 1 week from now. The crimson sunset sank below the horizon. The coming week would surely be long. But there was no more hesitation. For the first time in her life, she was about to gain complete freedom. In the distance, she could see the lights of planes landing at the airport. Maggie smiled quietly. A full moon hung in Phoenix's night sky. The desert's characteristically clear air made the moonlight especially vivid. 11 p.m. The upscale Paradise Valley neighborhood was wrapped in an unnatural silence. 2 police cars waited with their lights off in front of her parents' house. Lights were on in several nearby houses, where curious neighbors' shadows could be seen moving behind windows. The neighborhood gossips were clearly holding their breath, not wanting to miss what was about to unfold. In the Walker's garden, meticulously maintained desert plants cast shadows in the moonlight. Maggie's childhood memories of playing in this garden now felt like a distant past. Officer Thompson was making final confirmations over the radio. The veteran officer's voice carried the weight of having witnessed countless family breakdowns. Maggie let out a deep sigh in the police car's back seat. The events of the past week played through her mind like a film: lonely nights in the luxury hotel, city lights viewed from above, and the endless stream of messages from her family. All of it was an act, transparent excuses and false apologies. Maggie's expression twisted for just a moment. She caught her reflection in the rearview mirror and composed herself. "Ms. Walker." Officer Thompson's voice filled the car. "The taxi has crossed the city limits as planned. They'll enter through the main gate." Maggie nodded silently. The week at the luxury hotel had restored her calm judgment. She adjusted the collar of her navy blue suit and checked her makeup. Perfect grooming was her armor. Her pride as an accountant was supporting her now. "Now, are you ready?" Officer Thompson's voice carried a motherly gentleness. In her 30-year career, she must have seen many such family confrontations. "Yes, Of course. Maggie's voice was surprisingly steady. Years of endurance would finally end tonight. In the distance, taxi headlights appeared. The neighborhood street trees created a path of light and shadow. The clock showed 11:15 p.m. "I'll make the first contact." Officer Thompson gave instructions over the radio. "This might develop into a civil matter. Minimal intervention. Pay special attention to psychological effects on minors." The taxi slowly stopped in front of the house. The sound of tires on gravel broke the silence. Amy emerged first from the back seat. Her brand-name sundress and tan skin told of an elegant vacation. Her hair was styled in the latest fashion, her nails perfect, all of it a facade of elegance. Next, Mother, Susan. Beneath her perfect makeup, slight fatigue showed. She carried an expensive travel bag on her shoulder, maintaining her usual dignified expression. However, her eyes nervously scanned the surroundings. Father, David, silently began unloading luggage from the trunk. His former teacher's meticulous nature showed in how he arranged the bags. But his hands trembled noticeably. Finally, 8-year-old Sarah. Her innocent smile in a Disneyland t-shirt seemed out of place in this situation. Her small hands clutching a stuffed animal held the family's future. "Mr. and Mrs. Walker." Officer Thompson's voice cut through the quiet night. The uniformed officer emerged in the moonlight. Her mother's expression froze. The blood visibly drained from beneath her perfect makeup. "Is something wrong?" Her father's voice was slightly strained. The dignity of a former teacher was gone. "We'd like to discuss a passport theft case." "No." The color drained from her mother's face. Her expensive handbag nearly slipped from her trembling hands. Maggie emerged from the police car. Her figure in the moonlight was beautiful and dignified. She had decided to face this moment of liberation from years of oppression in her finest form. "Let's talk in the living room." Maggie's voice held no more uncertainty. The family sat on the living room sofa. The expensive leather couch that had witnessed countless family smiles was now the setting for legal proceedings. On the large TV screen, decisive security camera evidence played. The moment her mother's hand removed the passport, a calculated, natural movement. Amy's complicit smile, years of jealousy visible. Father's intentional indifference, his abdication of responsibility hidden behind the newspaper. Everything was clearly recorded. "This." Her mother's voice trembled. Her Hermes scarf quivered unnaturally at her neck. Officer Thompson quietly played the smartphone recording. The airport conversation was precisely documented. Voice analysis was complete. "We'll go with just the real family." Her mother's own voice echoed in the heavy air, as if only now realizing the cruelty of those words. Amy suddenly broke down crying, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. Always Maggie being perfect. I was always second best." Years of jealousy erupted at once. Her father just sat stunned, sunk deep in his leather armchair, staring at the ceiling. His pride as a teacher, dignity as head of the family, all crumbling away behind his reading glasses. Empty eyes wandered aimlessly. "I just wanted you to reflect." Her mother's voice was thin. "You always look down on us, always working." Self-justification lingered in her words. Who was really looking down on whom? Maggie's calm question went unanswered. The moment, years of power dynamics, reversed instantly. Sarah clung anxiously to her mother. "Mama, what's wrong? Grandma, why are you crying?" The child's innocent questions made the heaviness of the moment more stark. Amy couldn't even embrace her daughter, just continued crying, her expensively manicured fingers covering her face. "I'll explain the legal proceedings." Officer Thompson took out documents. Inside the black binder lay papers neatly arranged, announcing the family's dissolution. Maggie stood by the window, gazing at the garden. The moonlight gave the desert plants a silver glow. The shadows of cacti stretched long across the ground. This was the beginning of the end, and the opening of a new life. In the midnight silence, only the sound of shuffling legal documents echoed emptily. The moonlight continued to quietly illuminate this family's final moments. 3 months had passed since then. The twilight-covered Phoenix was still beautiful, but the scenery reflected in Maggie's eyes had completely changed. The legal settlement concluded surprisingly quickly. Despite the serious crime of passport theft, the prosecutors decided not to indict Susan, largely because Maggie herself requested leniency. As settlement money, her mother had transferred $5 million to Maggie's account. It was meant to settle all ties between them. However, many things couldn't be resolved with money. Her parents had to give up their life in the Paradise Valley luxury neighborhood. Rumors spread instantly through social media. Having lost their place in the church community as well, they decided to move to a small suburban town. Her mother's precious social circles were completely lost. Father David's pride as a former teacher was also shattered. He resigned from all honorary positions on the local education board. While names were withheld, newspapers reported this sad incident in a former teacher's family in detail. Expressions of disappointment from his former students pushed him further into despair. Amy's life changed dramatically too. She began psychiatric treatment 3 times a week, attending counseling to face her long-standing jealousy toward her sister. She could no longer maintain her superficially luxurious lifestyle. She quit the expensive yoga studio. Her social media posts suddenly ceased. Her husband Greg, having discovered his wife's true nature, began considering divorce. His reputation in the real estate industry plummeted, and his income drastically decreased. Their life of pretense and showing off was coming to a complete end. Most heartbreaking was the situation of 8-year-old Sarah. Due to her parents' discord and her mother's deteriorating mental state, she was temporarily taken in by her paternal grandparents. But life there wasn't peaceful either. The adults' conflicts cast deep shadows on the young girl's heart. Maggie herself had made a big decision. She left the Phoenix accounting firm and accepted a headhunting offer from a major firm in Chicago, restarting her career. Life in the new city was more pleasant than expected. The view from her high-rise apartment overlooking Lake Michigan gave her a sense of freedom entirely different from Phoenix's desert. She continued psychological counseling. You just wanted to be loved. The counselor's words occasionally pierced her heart. But not everything was dark. She maintained regular video calls with Sarah. "Auntie, can we meet again when you come to Chicago?" Maggie always answered her innocent smile with a smile of her own. "Of course, Auntie will come visit you anytime." At her new workplace, Maggie's abilities were fully recognized. Partnership promotion was already in sight. Life free from family constraints had unleashed her true potential. Walking along Lake Michigan's shore had become her weekend routine. While watching the sunset reflected on the lake's surface, Maggie occasionally recalled the events in Phoenix. One day, a letter arrived from Sarah. The childish handwriting overflowed with pure affection. "Dear Auntie, Mommy still isn't well, but I want to be strong like you, Auntie. So please wait for me, someday, when I grow up." Maggie held the letter to her chest. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of regret. From her high-rise balcony, she looked down at the city lights. Chicago's wind gently caressed her hair. So this is what it means to be truly free. Her soliloquy carried a hint of pride. Tomorrow would begin another new day, a life truly her own, bound by no one. The moonlight reflected on the lake's surface rippled gently, as if blessing the beginning of her new life. Everything had ended, and everything had just begun. The future reflected in Maggie's eyes was brighter than ever before.